All rise. Mr. Third, Circuit Court in the County of Wayne is now in session. The Honorable Judge Mark T. Slavin presided. Please take a seat. Please remain quiet while court is in session.
Before we get in, are we ready on Lee?
Yes, we are.
Why don't we do that first? Let's do this on
Morning, Your Honor. Assistant Prosecuting Attorney Michael Reynolds for People.
May it please the court, Mark Magnuson on behalf of Tremayne Alexander, who's standing for
Okay, sir, could you state your name for the record? All right, before we get started, I just have a housekeeping matter here. I received a letter this morning from Paula Cole, and I had a chance to talk to both attorneys, and I just want to put on the record that I know Paula, that she is an excellent attorney and an excellent person, and I did not realize she was involved in this case. Apparently the deceased Todd Terry was related to her, was her cousin. And I just want everybody to know before I go ahead with sentencing that I do think very highly of Ms. Cole. And however, I know there's a sentence agreement in this matter, but I did want to put that on the record. I didn't realize that there was that potential conflict with regard to this matter. But I do think very highly of her, but that will not affect the sentence at all, as there's a sentence agreement. Is there any objection to the court continuing with the sentence?
No, Your Honor.
Oh, Your Honor, the court did disclose that, and Paula Cole is an attorney in town for many years, and I'm sure most judges know of it.
Okay. And she and I have had cases against each other, and she's an excellent advocate. And, okay. All right. Mr. Prosecutor, have you had an adequate opportunity to review both the pre-sentence report and the sentencing guidelines?
Yes, Your Honor, I have.
Any additions, corrections, deletions, factual changes to either of those documents?
Not that I'm aware of, Your Honor. I scored the guidelines, and I think they are all accurate. And as to the pre-sentence investigation report, the only thing I would note is that I believe that the court has received some letters from friends and family members of the deceased that I just incorporate by reference.
Okay. And I have received those letters, and I've read each and every one of the letters. So thank you. Counsel, have you had an adequate opportunity to review both the pre-sentence report and the sentencing guidelines with your client?
Yes, Your Honor. We did go over the guidelines. We have no additions or modifications as it relates to objections as to those. We did go over the report. The only thing I would comment on, and I think it's, there's just a little bit of confusion. At the time of this offense, my client was in high school. On page 1 of the evaluation and plan, it indicates that he had left school prior to the completion of his studies and has not earned a diploma or GED today. I guess that's true. It just leaves the impression, though, that he had dropped out of school. He was at the time in the Oak Park Alternative High School attending classes.
Okay. Is there any modification you wish made to
Well,
that?
just to
Or
reflect
just
that
that the
back.
court knows it?
Okay.
Is that?
As long as the court is aware of that.
Okay, all right. Any other objections, additions, corrections, deletions, factual changes to either of those documents?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Alexander, have you had an adequate opportunity to review both the pre-sentence report and the sentencing guidelines with your attorney? Is there any additions, corrections, deletions, factual changes you wish to make to either of those documents? Counsel, what would you like to say on behalf of the people before the court imposes sentence?
Your Honor, there are some family members and friends that would like to address the court personally.
Okay.
I would just indicate that
if you'd like to have them go first, we can do that first, or if you'd like to
Yes, that would be
have
good.
them go first.
Yes.
All right, what we're gonna do is, who would like to speak to the court, we're gonna have you come over here by this microphone that's over by the jury chairs. And if one of the deputies could move that, or if the prosecutor could move that around there, so that. So whichever family members would like to speak, and I'll ask that whoever does, if when you come forward, if you could state your name for the record, and also please spell your name for the record. And then also I would ask that any comments that you make, that you address those to the court and not to the defendant. Okay, thank you. Sir, if you could state your name for the record, and then please spell your name for the record. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
Can you hear me fine?
I think, yeah, maybe, there you go.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Okay, that's better. Okay.
My name is Troy Christian, Christian.
Okay.
I'm speaking to you on behalf of Todd Terry. What you need to know is, I've known this man since I was 5 years old. Our mothers met at church, Out of Drive Faith Lutheran Church, where we confirmed together, baptized a month apart. We also went to high school together at Detroit Lutheran High West. Roomed together in college while I attended Wayne State University and he at OCC. I was in his wedding and he was in mine. He sat with me in the hospital when both my sons were born, and I stayed up with him playing cards when his two sons were born. All these things we knew we would do in life. Graduate, get married, have kids, coach teams, and give back to the community that gave so much to us. But one thing we didn't see coming was being murdered at 49. A week before his death, I asked him what was his plans for his 50th birthday party. He said, man, I'm going to take a trip with Vet and find the fountain of youth. 7 days later, I buried my best friend, mentor, and brother. When Ted, Todd's other brother, that's been by his side since the 2nd grade, asked me if I could speak today, I humbly said yes, if he'd help. He said, let the court know how Todd's death has been the hardest thing in my life I've ever had to deal with. Ted chose not to speak today, not because he's weak, but because he couldn't say anything positive. He's not ready to forgive. Mr. Jimmy Wade, Todd's father-in-law, who Todd affectionately called Pops, and we all call him Pops, said to me, try and let the court know that he was a son to me, not just a son-in-law, and I would do for him the same as I would do for any of my other kids. To the defendant, I want you to know that you may have killed a dreamer, but you didn't kill the dreams. His wife is going to get through this because she is strong, smart, and a child of God. His kids are going to go to college, and they're going to get married, and they're going to become positive black men in this society. Like I said, you may have killed a dreamer, but you didn't kill the dream. Judge, I've been in your courtroom for all of the motions, proceedings, and you seem like a hard but fair man. Todd was 49 years old when he was murdered. I am asking you to help this family smile again by sentencing Tremayne Alexander to at least 49 years old, 49 years, which will make this sentence, which is well within your sentencing guidelines. So he will never be able to kill the dreams and hopes of another family. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Could you have you state your name for the record, and if you could please spell your name.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Sheila Bogans, B-O-G-I-N-S. Todd Terry was my older brother. Your Honor, there may be times when killing someone is acceptable. Maybe it was accidental and self-defense or needed to protect one's property. Let me be clear, this is not one of those times. On the morning of September 7th, 2016, my brother Todd Terry was lured to a well-kept abandoned home by a falsified Craigslist ad for a motorcycle listed by the defendant. A witness confirmed that Todd and the defendant actually sat on the front porch talking to each other for about 20 minutes. He was then led to a backyard area where only to find a military assault rifle waiting for him. As he tried to run for his life, he was shot in the back and left to die in the street. I still have a difficult time trying to understand the events of that day. There were several opportunities for this encounter to have ended very differently. There were other choices that could have been made that would have resulted in my brother going home to his wife and children that evening. My mother raised Todd and I with the understanding that our decisions and actions have consequences. By pulling that trigger on that rifle, this defendant forever changed our lives. Yvette lost a husband, Tyler and Tavis lost their father, Carol and Jimmy a son, Michael and Raina lost their uncle, and Jay, John, Ted, and I lost our brother. But Todd's death impacted so many others. Aunts and uncles who lost a nephew, cousins who lost a cousin, students and athletes who lost a mentor and a coach, employees who not only lost a boss, but their job, as well as lifelong friends to Todd, who also lost their brother. Our family and community have suffered a great loss. The emptiness, pain, and devastation we feel by Todd's death are compounded by the fact that there was no, let me repeat, no reason for him to die that day. He should still be here with us today. We should not be in this courtroom, and life should be as it was. But that is not the case. For me, I cannot possibly imagine what would cause someone to kill an unarmed person running away from you. What a cowardice and cruel act. How could one have so little regard for another human being's life? I know these are questions I will never get answers to. As our family continues to put the pieces of our lives back together, as we try to heal the gaping wound that remains open in our hearts over Todd's murder, we hope to find some small amount of comfort in the fact that no one else can fall victim to this defendant. Thank you.
Now, if you could state your name for the record and please spell it. Thank you.
First name is Yvette, Y-V-E-T-T-E, and last name is Terry. I'm the wife of Todd Terry Ravens, and this has been an unimaginable experience. If it wasn't for the grace of God, I would not be able to stand here today. And I think it's very important to understand what happened on that day. My husband was a very hard worker. He was a business owner, and he employed people to do paint contracting. He did commercial work, drywall and plaster work, and he worked very hard for our family. He was a provider of our family. We were married for 19 years and friends for many more. I just want to take this moment really quickly, and I just want to give you an idea of what kind of support I've had outside. Could I just ask the family real quickly to stand? It's important that you understand this is just a fraction of the people who love Todd. Each and every person in this room has a story.
And everything I've received, thank you.
Thank you.
And I have received a multitude of letters on his also. I was already aware, but I appreciate seeing the family here also.
Thank
So,
you.
Thank you.
And they have been very supportive, and while they're all here for me in support of our sons, they have their own stories and they have their own love for Todd, as you've heard by Troy and by his sister Sheila. But I want to give you a description of that day. You know, so often I'm sure you have heard a lot of victim stories, and your job, I can't even imagine in terms of predator and victim. I mean, you probably have numerous cases like that. But I want to make sure the court understands my position. I believe that Tremayne woke up that morning and he had an opportunity. He had an opportunity to not be a predator. And I have to say, based on his history, because he's been exposed to the system, he understands the system. So for him, he had a choice. So I want to give a little bit of an indication of a victim's life. When you're a person who's out here every day, you make decisions. You make decisions. You make decisions. And you could have decided to let him go. You could have decided maybe just to rob him, which, oh my God, that's traumatic enough just to be at a gun, to see a gun in your face, or to be threatened with your life being taken. You have a choice. And so I want to make sure you understand, I have a 16 and a 13-year-old son who they adored their father. And on that course of that day, that morning, my husband and I, the day was our normal routine. He was getting ready to go to work. And my 16-year-old had already left for high school. My 13-year-old, who was an 8th grader, his dad said, don't forget when you get off the bus today, we're going to go to the batting cage because he plays baseball. They're both sports-oriented kids. They also are in the band. They work hard for their grades. And one thing that their father instilled was that we don't have idle time. We don't sit around and do anything. We go to school, we go to work, we do things, and anything in life that you want, you have to work for. No one owes you anything. No one owes you anything. You have to go to work for what you want. So as a mother of 2 sons, at that time we heard that Tremayne was in high school. I'm a mother of a high schooler, and my son was going to school. And so when we got home that day, I was greeted by I'm going to incorporate this here now. I want to personally thank the Michigan State Police, and I want to thank Mike Reynolds and the prosecutor and all the staff associated. But I was greeted that day by the Michigan State Police in my driveway. And I can't even tell you what that feels like. I walked up and they said, it's been an incident, and your husband didn't make it. And my sons came home, my 13-year-old off the bus thinking he's going to the batting cage, seeing people in the driveway talking to his mother, not sure what's going on. My 16-year-old was the one that called me and said, we have some police here, Mom, looking for Dad. And when he heard that, he called and texted his dad. He texted him thinking, why are they asking for Dad? What's going on? They didn't ask for him, they were asking for me. But he noticed his father's name was on a sheet of paper. So he texted his dad immediately. He wanted to know, why are these people here with badges looking for my father? And he texted and he called, no answer. Now we are all together standing in front of them. They asked me, well, ma'am, do you want to tell your sons? I said, no, sir, I want you to tell them. And I'll never forget that day because their innocence was taken for the rest of their lives. As a 16 and 13-year-old, they'll have to live for the rest of their life that their father will not be in their life. Now, as a person, as a woman of God, I believe we'll see each other again one day, thank God. But in the interim, I can't make a phone call, Tremayne. I can't write a letter to my son, to my husband. I can't go visit him at any prison that he's at. And I think that's important because I recognize that he has family members as well, but we cannot reach out. I cannot write a letter. I cannot make a phone call. I cannot have a visit. I will never see my husband, Todd Eric Terry, again in this lifetime. So again, we make decisions that a moment in time that has changed our lives forever. So thank you, Judge Slavens, for this time before you. And I just ask that you remember, I have no other, this is it for me. This is the chapter that's being closed. But it will forever be with me, for every graduation, for every baseball game, for every basketball game, for anything that I do in life. I will never have Todd by my side. And he loved him. We loved him dearly. He was priceless to us. There is no time that is too long. And I will close with one more statement. A life should be for a life, in my opinion, in our system. Not just in this case, but any case. Even if you're behind bars, when you take someone's life, that means you have no regard for them. And you should spend the rest of your life in the same capacity. Thank you.
Ms. Terry, if I can, I'd like to tell you how proud that your husband would be of what you just did. It's magnificent that you did, how you represented your husband. I'd just like to tell you, I'm sure he'd be very proud of you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge Slavens. I appreciate
Thank
that.
you for your courtesy.
Thank you.
Counsel?
Judge, there's not much more I could say that would be as eloquent as the people who knew and were related to and affected by Todd Terry. The court has had an opportunity to learn probably more about Mr. Alexander than most other defendants because of the excellent motions that Mr. Madison filed that had the court look at the circumstances surrounding his statement to the police, his prior history of going through the system, being represented by lawyers. The court saw the similar acts motion that I filed to see the other types of activities that the defendant was involved in, predatory activities involving robberies utilizing Craigslist. Even 2 days before this killing, there was the incident that happened only a couple blocks from the area. You know, one of the things that this reminded me of, Your Honor and I think, both took the bar exam the same year, 1979, if I'm not mistaken. And in growing up, I know I watched the Westerns, and there was sort of the cowboy's code. And one of the portions of it said, you don't shoot a man in the back. In this case, this is exactly what we had here. By his conduct before and at the time of this killing, Mr. Alexander has earned and merited a lengthy prison sentence. And a sentence of 30 to 60 years is just that. Hopefully, Mr. Alexander will take advantage of the next 30 years of his life to focus on what he did, how he preyed upon others rather than going out, earning a living, bettering himself to better the community. And if he does that, he's going to be released at the age of 47 or so, which would give him an opportunity to give back to the community and atone for what he has done. And I hope he does that. If he doesn't, they're going to have him until he's well past Social Security qualification age, regardless of how far they push it out in the next 2 decades. But I asked the court to impose the terms of the sentence agreement, and I thank the court for all the work that this court did in handling all the pretrial motions.
Thank you.
Well, Judge, we've heard a lot of moving statements. We've heard that a very good man died. And that's a terrible thing. You know, my wife was assigned one of these cases where a juvenile offender, some 25 or 30 years ago, was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life without parole. And the Supreme Court has recently determined, due to a number of factors about the maturity of the juveniles and so forth, that those cases have to be revisited. And in this particular case that she had and has, there was a young man, probably 17 years old, who was convicted of taking the life of an individual. And it was amazing to see the transformation that occurred over 25 or 30 years in this gentleman, who became a mentor to other young people, who learned how to take responsibility, who became active in his church, who became, took college courses and took other things to try to better himself and others who found themselves in a similar situation. In other words, there's evidence here to show that a teenager who's impulsive, who makes horrible decisions. We heard about Ms. Terry talking about he had a decision, horrible decisions. But I think there's the good news here, if there is any good news, is that he's going to have an opportunity to try to learn from this, to progress, and be a better person. And I've talked to him. He's a young man who is a very quiet individual. Almost belies the crime that he's charged with. He's quiet. He's shy. He's almost an introvert. We had him tested. Dr. Antoinette Priscilla found that he has profound learning disabilities, particularly severe impairments in comprehension and so forth. Doesn't give an excuse. He's not here making excuses. He took a guilty plea. Very sorry for the loss of the Terrys and his own family, because there's 2 families here that are suffered immensely. And I'm not trying to compare, but his family, as the court knows, has been here every single court occurrence. His mother, his father, his sisters, his cousins. They're on the phone with me. almost weekly, before and after every court appearance, wanting to know, showing support. They're devastated. And I know he's extremely close to his mother. Doesn't make a decision without insulting her. You know, now he's recognized as being an adult. Apologize for his family. Judge, we worked out a plea agreement that under the circumstances I think is fair. Some people will say it's too hard, some people say it's too lenient. Maybe that's a sign of it. It's a good negotiation. But we would ask that the court follow the sentence agreement, 30 to 60 years, dismiss the other two counts in this case, dismiss the other pending case that was following in this case, so in this case 168691, and sentence him in accordance with our agreement.
Okay. Mr. Alexander, this is your opportunity to speak to the court before I impose sentence. Is there anything you'd like to say to the court before I impose sentence? Well, there's a couple observations I'd like to make before I impose sentence in this case. And number one is I've had a chance to review all these letters from the various members of the Terry family. And I've also had an opportunity to hear the three of the representatives speak on their behalf. And I'd like to tell you how much your love of Todd Terry comes through in those letters, and how wonderful a man he was, how much this earth is going to lose, has lost by losing Mr. Terry. And I'd also like to tell you how strong your religious beliefs come through. And I think that if there's anything that can help you through this, it's those strong religious beliefs. I am always amazed when people lose somebody like Todd Terry, how, although they do want punishment, how gracious people are. And I think that that's based a lot on their religious beliefs, and I think that if that's ever going to come through, it's going to come through in an event like this. So I'd like to tell you how blessed I think that this family is to be close with those religious beliefs. I also want everybody to understand, although I know that a number of the letters said that they'd like the court to impose the maximum sentence, there has been a sentence agreement in this matter where both sides, and the court has a great deal of respect for both attorneys. I think they both did a very excellent job representing their clients, vigorously pursued their motions, and represented their clients well. And the court has a lot of respect for both attorneys, and with regard to the assistant prosecutor, his decision and the defense attorney's decision to come to this sentence agreement. Also, that Terry, who I just thought was amazing today, I think is a very principled and bright and articulate lady, and I'm sure she's had a lot of time to review the facts of this case with the assistant prosecutor, and that they both agreed that the sentence agreement in this matter was appropriate, that being a minimum of 30 to a maximum of 60 years. But I also want to say, Mr. Alexander, there's two things that really stick out with this. And I just want to remind Mr. Alexander two things that happened with this. That number one, how senseless, absolutely senseless, this murder was. There was no reason that you needed to kill them. There was absolutely no reason you need to shoot him and kill him. You could have taken his, whatever it was you were taking from him, and just let the man go on. But instead, you not only engaged in the senseless act, you engaged in the cowardly act. That a man who's unarmed, whose back is to you, who's clearly trying to get away from you, you shoot him in the back and kill him. That's a coward. It was senseless and it was cowardly. And what have you done? You've ruined two things. You've ruined your mother, you've ruined your family, and then you've ruined the Terry family, who didn't do anything to anybody. You took away a man who coached all kinds of children, made their lives better. You took away a loving husband. You took away two children, a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old's father, who will never be able to ask their dad a question. Never be able to say, Dad, do you love me? Will you give me a hug? Dad, will you go to my graduation? Will you go to my wedding? You've taken all of that away from the Terry camp. So I'm relying upon, and I've had a chance to review this, and I think that it is appropriate. I am gonna reluctantly adopt the sentence agreement with regard to this matter. I'm in order that you spend a minimum of 30 years to a maximum of 60 years with Michigan Department of Corrections. You are to receive 194 days jail credit served. You are to pay $68 state costs, $130 crime victims assessment, $1,300 court costs, and $400 attorney fees. And counsel, is there any restitution in this matter?
I think Mrs. Terry in the pre-sentence investigation report said that she knows he's never going to be earning any type of income, is not asking for restitution.
Sir, you may file an application for leave to appeal your sentence and conviction if you choose to do. I'm sorry. Also, I'm going to find that this sentence is appropriate. I understand it's within the guidelines. It is advisory pursuant to Lockridge, and I understand that. But I think that the factors that I've set forth, that this has a deterrent effect, it protects society, it's for discipline, reformation, and also proportional. So for all of those reasons, I think that the sentence is appropriate, along with there was a sentence agreement. Sir, you may file an application for leave to appeal your conviction sentence. If you choose to do so, you must do so within 42 days. If you cannot afford an attorney, the court will appoint an attorney and furnish the attorney with portions of the transcript and record necessary to handle your appeal. This request must be made within 42 days. You're now being handed a form through your attorney inquiring into your financial condition. I request that you sign and receipt for that form.
Yes, sir.
All right. And if there's nothing further, this matter is completed. Everyone have a nice day.
Has the prosecutor...
Love you, cuz.
Love you, baby.
Yes.
That case was dismissed. Nothing further, this matter is completed.